The deeper pattern here is not about calling people good or bad. It is about seeing the behaviors that slowly drain your peace, your focus, and your energy when they keep happening without limits. Each pattern shows a different kind of imbalance. Some people take and rarely give back. Some unload their emotions but never solve anything. Some test you without respect. Some repeat the same damage without learning. Some compare instead of truly connecting. And some avoid responsibility every single time. On their own, these actions can look small, easy to excuse, easy to explain away, but repetition changes everything. What starts as a moment becomes a system, and that system begins shaping your emotional world in ways you may not notice until you feel constantly tired around the wrong people. The hard truth is this: many of these patterns continue not because they are so strong, but because access keeps being reopened. When someone keeps getting your time, patience, attention, or emotional effort without changing how they act, the imbalance becomes stable. From their side, nothing needs to improve because the arrangement still works. That is why seeing it is not enough. Awareness without action becomes permission. Permission becomes a pattern, and the pattern becomes your normal. At the center of all of this is one simple rule. Reciprocity is what makes any relationship last. Personal, emotional, social. It does not matter. If there is no mutual awareness, no mutual adjustment, no real care for impact, the connection slowly turns into consumption. It stops being exchange and starts becoming extraction. And the longer that setup stays in place, the more familiar it begins to feel. Stay with me, because this is where most people miss the trap before it fully closes around them. Toxic people usually do not begin by showing you the full truth of who they are. If they did, it would be too obvious, too easy to reject. So they often begin with something subtle, a tiny moment, a small sting, something that can be mistaken for stress, a joke, bad timing, or simple misunderstanding. That is why so many people miss the danger at first. They think they are dealing with ordinary tension when they are actually being studied. Someone may cut you off while you are talking just to see whether you hold your space or instantly shrink. They may throw out a sharp comment wrapped in humor and watch your face closely to see whether you laugh, freeze, or push back. They may go cold for no clear reason, reply late on purpose, cancel at the last second, or shift their tone just enough to make you wonder what changed. And then they wait. Not always because they are busy. Sometimes because they want to see how fast you turn inward and start questioning yourself. These moments are rarely random. They are often quiet tests. The reason these tests work so well is simple. Most people do not react to the behavior itself. They react to the confusion it creates. Instead of noticing the move, they start checking themselves. Am I too sensitive? Did I read it wrong? Maybe I should let it go. That pause gives the other person information. Valuable information. It shows how much discomfort you are willing to carry just to keep the peace. Every time you excuse something that clearly unsettles you, they learn your boundaries can be bent. Every time you over-explain too quickly, they learn guilt works on you. Every time you chase clarity from someone who is creating confusion, they learn your desire for peace can become a tool in their hands. And that first small test, it often tells you more than the later damage. Watch for that. It matters more than you think. For many toxic people, the test is not really about that one moment. It is about measuring control. The comment, the silence, the push, the shift in tone, those things are often just tools. What they really want to know is whether they can move your emotions with little effort. Can a delayed reply make you anxious? Can a cold voice make you overthink all night? Can one small criticism push you into proving yourself? To most people, these moments feel random. But to someone who feeds on control, they can act like emotional surveillance. Every reaction you give becomes data. If your mood changes because of what they did, they begin to see that your inner world can be touched from the outside. And that feeling of influence can matter more to them than real connection ever could. Real connection asks for honesty, vulnerability, and mutual respect. Control asks for far less. It only asks for access. If they can disturb your peace, they feel powerful. If they can make you explain yourself when you did nothing wrong, they feel important. If they can create tension and then watch you rush in to fix it, they learn that your nervous system is easy to pull into their orbit. The issue itself may be small, but the deeper reward for them is knowing they can affect you whenever they choose. Some do this on purpose. Others do it so often it has become automatic. But the hidden question stays the same. Can I shift this person emotionally whenever I want? That is the real test. And once you see that, the whole game starts to look very different. One of the most ignored truths about toxic behavior is that your reactions can quietly teach people how to treat you. Every time someone crosses a line and you respond with emotion but never address the behavior, a lesson is being written. Toxic people notice this more than most people realize. They pay attention to what hurts you, what makes you defensive, what makes you chase, and what makes you go silent. Even if they never say it out loud, they are learning from you all the time. Your reaction becomes feedback. It tells them whether their behavior creates fear, guilt, confusion, urgency, or compliance. Over time, they start to understand exactly which emotional buttons get the result they want. If someone dismisses your feelings and you instantly start explaining them, they may learn that invalidating you makes you work harder for understanding. If they pull away and you quickly reach out to close the distance, they may learn that withdrawal makes you pursue them. If they disrespect you and you laugh it off to avoid conflict, they may learn that your discomfort carries no cost. None of these moments seem huge on their own, but repeated enough, they become emotional conditioning. Without meaning to, many people train others to think their boundaries are flexible, their patience is endless, and their peace can be interrupted without consequence. This does not mean your emotions are wrong. It means automatic reactions can become instructions. Toxic people often do not need force because many people hand them a map. That map is built from repeated emotional responses. It shows where your insecurities live, where your fear of loss sits, and where your need for approval can be used. And when your reactions become predictable, manipulation becomes easier. That is why awareness matters. The moment your response becomes intentional instead of automatic, the pattern begins to crack. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength because many people have been taught that they must defend themselves immediately when someone comes at them unfairly. When a toxic person twists your words, says something insulting, or tries to provoke you, the natural impulse is to explain, to clear things up, to finally say it in the perfect way. Most people secretly believe that if they can just explain well enough, the other person will understand. But toxic people are often not looking for understanding at all. In many cases, they already know exactly what they are doing. What they want is access to your emotional energy, and long explanations can give them more than direct conflict ever could. Each time you rush to justify yourself, you reveal what matters most to you. You show what accusations reach you, what fears can be touched, and how quickly you feel the need to repair tension you did not create. To a manipulative person, that information is gold. They may not care about your explanation. They care about how hard you are willing to work for approval, clarity, or peace. The more you explain, the more material they have to twist later. They can interrupt your words, distort your meaning, or use your honesty as proof that you are unstable or overreacting. What starts as an attempt to clear the air can become a cycle where your sincerity keeps handing them new tools. Silence changes that. Not passive silence, not fear, chosen silence, measured silence, the kind that removes the reward. When someone expects a big emotional defense and gets calm restraint instead, the pattern breaks for a moment. That moment matters. Silence does not always mean saying nothing forever. It means refusing to keep feeding manipulation with unnecessary access. Sometimes one short sentence carries more power than 10 minutes of defense. Sometimes calm says more than words ever could. Remember that, because not every accusation deserves your labor, and not every misunderstanding deserves your energy. Small boundaries reveal more than big confrontations because they show you how someone reacts when even a little access is denied. Many people think a boundary has to be dramatic to matter. It does not. In toxic dynamics, tiny limits often expose the biggest truths. A simple, "I can't talk right now." A calm, "That doesn't work for me." A quiet refusal to laugh at a disrespectful joke. These small moments can reveal intention faster than long talks ever will. Toxic people often seem comfortable as long as they have full emotional access. But the second a small boundary appears, their reaction can tell you what they were really expecting from you. Healthy people usually adjust. They may ask for clarity. They may respect what you said. They may simply move with maturity. Toxic people often react very differently. They may get irritated by a boundary that should not feel threatening. They may call you selfish, cold, distant, difficult, or too sensitive. They may suddenly act hurt, not because they are deeply wounded, but because guilt is one of the easiest ways to get you to reopen the door. Sometimes they push harder right after you set the limit, not because they did not hear you, because they are testing whether the boundary is real. And that moment tells you everything. The boundary is rarely the true issue. The issue is whether they still believe they can move past what you clearly expressed. Their response shows whether they care about your well-being or just their access to you. That is why small limits matter so much. They create tiny points of truth where a person must decide whether they see you as someone with real limits or as someone whose limits can be negotiated. Many people seem respectful when everything goes their way, but respect is easy when nothing is required. Real character appears when access is restricted. If someone only treats you well when you are convenient, they are showing you more than they realize. Pay attention. This part can save you years. Confusion is one of the most powerful tools a toxic person can use because a confused mind is far easier to influence than a clear one. When someone keeps you unsure of where you stand, unsure of what was meant, unsure of whether your own memory is right, your trust in yourself starts to weaken. Many people think confusion in a relationship just means poor communication. Sometimes that is true, but sometimes confusion is not accidental at all. Sometimes it is carefully kept alive because uncertainty makes the other person easier to control. A person who knows where they stand can make decisions. A person who feels mentally off balance often stays stuck trying to understand. This can happen in subtle ways. Someone says something cruel, then later claims you took it wrong. They act warm one day and cold the next with no explanation. They promise change, then repeat the same behavior a week later. They deny words they clearly said. They accuse you of overreacting to things that genuinely felt wrong, and slowly your focus shifts. Instead of questioning their behavior, you start questioning yourself. You replay conversations. You search for hidden meanings. You wonder if you are too demanding, too emotional, too difficult, too sensitive. That shift is the trap. Your attention turns away from their actions and turns inward against your own judgment. For some toxic people, that uncertainty creates a huge advantage. When your energy is spent decoding them, you have less energy left to protect yourself. When you are focused on getting clarity, they get to control when that clarity comes. They can give reassurance just long enough to keep you attached, then pull it back the moment they want leverage again. And because warmth feels more intense after distance, the instability itself can start to feel addictive. That is how confusion stops being a moment and becomes a system. Emotional detachment changes the whole power balance because toxic people usually depend on emotional access far more than people realize. Their influence often does not come from direct force or loud domination. It comes from their ability to shake your inner world. If they can make you anxious, guilty, defensive, desperate, or ashamed, they can often shape your behavior without ever giving a direct order. Many people think manipulation happens mostly through words. In reality, it often happens through emotional disruption. Once someone can control how you feel on a regular basis, they can often influence how you respond. That is why emotional detachment feels so threatening to a toxic person. It removes the very mechanism they rely on. Detachment does not mean becoming cruel. It does not mean pretending not to care. It means creating enough inner distance that another person's behavior no longer decides your emotional state the second it happens. You still notice, you still see, you still understand, but you stop absorbing every move as if it must become your burden. Instead of reacting instantly, you begin observing. Instead of defending automatically, you become deliberate. Instead of chasing reassurance, you allow silence to reveal what words often hide. And that shift, small from the outside, changes everything inside the dynamic. Toxic people often expect fast reactions because fast reactions confirm access. They know how to handle anger because anger still keeps you emotionally tied to them. They know how to handle tears because tears still signal attachment. But detachment creates uncertainty. It removes the easy emotional script. When their usual moves stop producing the usual result, they lose the ability to predict you. And for someone who once felt powerful because they understood your emotional rhythm, that loss of certainty can be deeply unsettling. Detachment is not indifference. It is self-protection. It is the decision to stop placing your nervous system in the hands of someone who has repeatedly shown they cannot be trusted with it. Predictability can become a hidden weakness because toxic people often study patterns more closely than most people think. They watch what upsets you, what makes you forgive fast, what makes you chase, and what makes you stay. Over time, they learn your rhythm. They learn that if they become distant, you will reach out. If they criticize you, you will defend yourself. If they pull back affection, you will work harder to reconnect. Once someone can predict your emotional moves, they no longer need to control every moment directly because they already know what you are likely to do next. Your consistency becomes something they can quietly use. That is why predictability can be dangerous in toxic dynamics. It gives the other person psychological certainty. They know which words create guilt. They know which silences create anxiety. They know how long to stay cold before your fear starts doing the work for them. In many cases, manipulation becomes easier, not because their methods are brilliant, but because your reactions have become familiar. What may look like emotional intuition from them can actually be repeated observation of your patterns. Unpredictability changes that. Not childish game playing, not chaos, not revenge, just intention. When they expect instant access and you pause, the pattern changes. When they expect a long explanation and you stay brief, the pattern changes. When they expect you to chase distance and you choose stillness, the pattern changes. The goal is not to confuse people for power. The goal is to stop making your emotional responses so easy to use. Once your behavior becomes deliberate instead of reflexive, the person who once felt one step ahead loses their map. And that matters because many toxic people rely on that map more than they let you see. They feel strongest when your peace is easy to calculate. Take that away, and the whole system starts shaking. In the end, toxic people test you for one reason. They are trying to find out whether your peace belongs to you or whether it can be controlled by them. They watch your reactions. They study your limits. They look for the places where emotion can overpower awareness. But once you understand that every small test is revealing intention, everything changes. You stop taking every move personally. You stop seeing their behavior as mysterious. You start seeing it as predictable, and that is where your power comes back. You no longer feel the need to explain every truth, defend every feeling, or chase every moment of distance. You begin answering with clarity instead of panic, with boundaries instead of fear, with self-control instead of survival mode. That is the shift. That is the turning point. Because toxic people only keep power over the version of you that still reacts automatically. The version that still believes every cold moment must be fixed, every unfair comment must be corrected, every silence must be decoded, every insult must be answered. But once you become calm enough to see the pattern without stepping into it, you become harder to move, harder to read, harder to control. And when a toxic person realizes they can no longer reach into your inner world whenever they want, they are forced to face the one thing they never planned for, a person they cannot easily manipulate. If this clicked for you, hold on to it. Really hold on to it, because seeing the pattern is the first step, but changing your response is what breaks the cycle for good.